time once again for Community Forum, and we are very lucky to have with us live in the studios this morning Belay and Bridget Mugambe. Belay is a founder and director of MELCA, the Movement for Ecological Learning and Community Action in Ethiopia. He also coordinates the Alliance for Food Sovereignty for Africa. And Bridget Mugambe is a social scientist, also with the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, based in Uganda. I should also point out that you are both in town in Seattle participating in the Africa-U.S. Food Sovereignty Strategy Summit that is taking place this weekend. And there's going to be an event at Town Hall Seattle that we'll be mentioning here at the end of the show. Start out, tell us about your organizations.
Well, we both work for the same organization, Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa. And I am based in Uganda. Million is based in Ethiopia. And AFSA works towards bringing together farm organizations, farmer networks within Africa to create a common voice around issues of food sovereignty. And we look at different aspects around food sovereignty. We look at issues of agroecology foremost, issues of land relations, access to land, control of land for small-scale farmers. But we also look at issues of seed sovereignty and how it affects the agriculture systems, issues of access to seed, farmers' rights to seed, exchange of seed, control of seed, and the whole farming systems around small-scale farming.
Just to add, in terms of composition of members, AFSA is a network of networks. We have networks in Eastern Africa, we have networks in Southern Africa, and in Western Africa. And if I tell you about one of the networks, Pelham Regional has 10 other networks in 10 African countries, and one of the 10 regional networks called Pelham Kenya has 44 members, and they work with 2 million farmers. So if you multiply that by 10 networks, it's 20 million. And this only for one network. I think if you sum up all AFSA members, it would be at least 60, 70 million people, million Africans that are working on various issues. Some of them work exclusively with indigenous issue, like IPAC, Indigenous People Coordinating for Committee for Africa. Some work with farmers, like ESAF, and some with civil society organizations like the African Biodiversity Network. So it's a wide-based African network. Out of 54 countries in Africa, we work with within 50 of them. So it's a broad-based African network. In addition to that, I have also another hat, which is called MELCA-Ethiopia. MELCA is a member of the African Biodiversity Network, which is a member of AFSA. We work on intergenerational learning. We know that people talk about value of people's knowledge on medicine, on seeds, on agriculture, you name it. And the current generation in Africa, I'm sure as it is in the USA, have a very little idea about the knowledge of their parents. That knowledge was being passed from generation to generation for the last 1,000 years. And it was like a river. Now this river is being halted, We are having a problem due to many reasons. Due to globalization, due to industrial agriculture, due to media influence, So how do we make sure that this knowledge is flowing from one generation to another generation? Simply, to give you a simple example, in Ethiopia, we have over 100 diversity of wheat, the grain, and barley, that amount. We have more than 60 varieties of sorghum, and all these crops, you can call them. And this knowledge is only with the parents of the new generation. So we have to make sure that this knowledge is passed from generation to generation so that humanity does not lose it. That's what we do. We also work on agroecology, on practical examples of agroecology on ground, so that it's not a theoretical concept. We also work on forest issues. That's how we do.
So talk about the issues that you see as key at the summit that you are attending this weekend?
Well, I think the broader, bigger issue is the issue of food sovereignty. And I think it's good that different groups from the US and from Africa are coming together to discuss the smaller issues within food sovereignty. And it's also important to appreciate that food sovereignty is determined by where you are. So communities in the US have what they call food sovereignty. Communities within Africa have what they call food sovereignty. And so it is good that we come together and appreciate what each determines as food sovereignty. But also we are coming together to discuss a bit about the challenges that are likely to hamper our food sovereignty. And you find that whereas we're in different continents, we have a bit of similarity. Sometimes the practices within the US are impacting on food sovereignty within Africa. I don't know how much it is vice versa, but also food sovereignty in the US has its own challenges that we can come together and discuss and contribute to. And probably to talk a bit about issues of food sovereignty and our understanding of food sovereignty, especially in the African context. It is all about not just the quantity of food that you can have, but it's also about the quality of food, about the taste of food, about the the inner feeling that you get from food as you eat this food, how the food is produced, the attachment we have to food, the cultural issues attached to food. So for us, food sovereignty is a very important issue because Africa is also really diverse. It's culturally diverse. So it is important for us to discuss some of these threats that are threatening our food sovereignty in that aspect.
Yeah, I think what we are experiencing is probably a clash of two visions for the future of the world, I think on part of problem analysis, we have a similar understanding with foundations like the Gates Foundation. We know that, and we understand that the population is exploding. It's not increasing, it's exploding even in Africa. Even if it is tapering off in many Western countries, in Africa the population is exploding. So we have to feed this growing number of population. We don't have any problem with that analysis. Land is degrading in Africa, and forest is degrading, and the feeding habit of the people is changing. As people get more and more income, they tend to urbanize, and urbanization also puts constraint on the resources of the urban areas and also on rural areas. And the change in food habits mean that rural communities have to produce some kind of food for the urban people. And rural agricultural areas are taken up by the expansion of urbanization. And so we have this problem. So there are two visions for answering this question. One vision, we call it an agri-revolution or a productivist vision. It's like the vision of the Gates Foundation and its allies, the Monsanto. So they say, we have to feed this population, this world. It's a growing population. So how do you do it? You do it only through hybrid seeds or genetically modified seeds, through irrigation, using agrochemicals, and also substituting knowledge, the knowledge of the people. And I've told you that in African context and in the context of the world, the knowledge of the people is very critical. It's an accumulated, it's a tested, it's a very critical knowledge, even to companies. So this is their vision, and we all know what this vision has brought to this world. We all know about climate change, and 40% of the greenhouse gases come from industrial ways of production. And that's very dangerous to this planet. And we know that we are losing our biodiversity rapidly. And diversity in changing climate is a very critical thing. How do you adapt to the changing climate? It's just through diverse crops, through diverse way of thinking, through diverse way of knowledge. That's how you counter climate change. But that diversity is disappearing. And recent cutting-edge sciences, like the science of resilience, tells you that a resilient community is a community with a diverse forms of livelihood, with diverse forms of knowledge. So diversity goes out of the window when the visions of Gates Foundation and the foundation like that comes through the door, you know. So it's very, very, very dangerous vision. We know that there is a lot of displacement in rural communities, and the agrochemicals are polluting the land, the water, and they are the major contributors of also greenhouse gases, because agrochemicals are nitrogen-based. The nitrogen is much more powerful in affecting climate than carbon dioxide even. So we know that. So what is the other vision? The vision that we are propounding is the agroecology vision. That vision, as I said, still maintains that we have to increase productivity. And there are hundreds of examples which shows you that it is possible to increase productivity through agrobiodiversity, much more than sometimes agrochemically led agriculture. In Ethiopia, for example, there was this experiment that was done by the Institute for Sustainable Development. That experiment was going on for the last 15 years. What they did was, with agreement with farmers, so one plot of land, no agrochemicals, no compost. One plot of land, chemicals. One plot of land, compost. And soil and water conservation, in treating the soil. And analysis of different varieties of crops on this land has proved that those which are done in an agroecology way have increased productivity, and women are happy in the communities because the taste is good, the stomach of their children is full because of that. And most of the time, people, when they talk about crops, they only think of humans. But in a rural community like Ethiopia, livestock is very critical. So it's a security. So even the cows and oxen prefer hay from agroecologically farmed farm. You see? So there are plenty of examples in Kenya, in Benin, in Ivory Coast, agroecology. If you go to the AFSA website, AFSA, AFSAfrica.org, you can see case of agroecology, where rural community have turned their life around by following simple methods of enriching the soil. So our vision is for that. So the meeting that we are having, now, is also exchanging information around that. We have amongst ourselves people who have been working on agroecology for a very, very long time, from universities on a scientific basis. By the way, when people talk about agroecology, and when they compare it with green revolution ways of agriculture, they say, oh, this is technology based, this is scientific. Agroecology is not science based, but it's a highly complicated science, agroecology itself. It requires you to think about each of the organisms in the soil, in the system even. It's a systems thinking. It's a highly, highly advanced science, agroecology, as compared to the biotechnology or modern biotechnology. I don't want to say biotechnology, modern biotechnology and green revolution kinds of agriculture. So we are here to find out, how we can scale up the work that we are doing, how we can collaborate, and our dream is also to bring other continents with us, Europe, Latin America, Australia, these continents, to come together and create a bigger vision for this wallet.
Yeah, I just wanted to also talk a bit about the diversity. I think Million mentioned that the diversity of knowledge within our systems is sometimes overlooked. And I just want to give you a clear example. For example, some of the Green Revolution projects that are going on. For example, we have the GMO banana trials that are happening, that are sponsored by the Gates Foundation. And they are targeting countries like Uganda, which are large banana producers and large banana consumers. And when you look at a country like Uganda, if the Gates Foundation is sponsoring GM or banana, targeting children under 5 in terms of increasing their consumption of vitamin A, it is it's almost a project that is already that is doomed not to work. Because if you're doing a vitamin A banana for children under 5, most children in my culture under 5 do not eat bananas. They don't like them. They eat them, they don't like them. Because the banana is a food that is better consumed while hot. When it's cold, it is not good. So and children, of course, don't eat hot food. So they prefer other foods like rice and yams and cassava and not banana. So to produce a banana without first understanding in what context is it produced, and the target group you're producing this banana for does not even like it. They don't eat it. I have children who are, I have a child who is below 5 and one who is just slightly above now. And they just never liked bananas at all. And most families, even I, when I was young, I just never liked bananas until I got a certain age where I could eat it hot. But then also the other thing is that if you're producing one variety of banana and you're going to bring it onto the market and erode all these the indigenous varieties. For example, in my country, we have over 50 varieties of bananas. And for each of this variety in my culture, we have a use for it. We have a banana that, for example, when I was getting married, my husband had to bring a specific type of banana as part of my dowry. When I got married still, I had to cook my first meal for my husband, a specific variety of banana, which is different. During funeral rites, there's a specific kind of banana we cook during birth ceremonies. So we have culture attachments to all these kinds of bananas. So if you are modifying just one banana and you're going to give it free to all these farmers to produce, then you're putting all these other kind of bananas and all the cultural attachments we have on them at risk. So I think it's important that as this research happens, it also takes into context some of the local knowledge, the local appreciation of food that is just beyond the quantity, and the vitamin A that we can also get in all other foods, and all these statistics about the population and all this. Food is not just about that for us. Yeah.
So it appears to be another form of colonialism, forcing and top down, where U.S. and worldwide corporations come in with the solution and don't consult the farmers and the organizations that already exist, representing millions of farmers. So talk a bit more about just recently, Million, you put out a press release regarding the mega seed corporations that are snatching up seed companies in Africa. Could you talk about that?
Yep. I think in general what's happening is through the I think there's two ways. One is as it is happening in other countries also with other kinds of companies. Big companies are buying small companies and swallowing them and becoming big. Maybe we don't have a problem if Microsoft buys a small company which is producing one software or another. But this is seed. Seed means almost everything to a community, to a rural community, even to a country. It means food, obviously. It means nutritious food. It means security. It means continuity. There is past in the seed. There is present in the seed. There is future in the seed, in a single seed. It means culture, the culture of the local community. I think what's happening now is instead of agriculture, the culture is removed. Now we have is agribusiness. That's where even the biggest problem starts. Culture is being substituted for business. Even with that change in the term of agriculture into agribusiness, there's a huge loss, because food production is a cultural activity. So these kind of mergers, they were taking place to a smaller extent here and there. But now this is a big takeover. So what's going to happen is a question. The question is, you have, instead of a government which is to some extent accountable to its own people, there is another entity coming and owning the basic rights, the basic component of your life, which is seed. You see? What if, I don't know how our governments think. This is a control. It's a control the basic rights of your own people. So what's happening also is that, at the end of the day, the farmers will be forced to purchase a certain quality seed, certain kind of seed. They cannot choose. That choice is snatched from their hand. In a typical rural community in Africa, more than any other continent, Africa is the most cultural diverse. The most. You go to Tanzania, Nigeria, you have more than 300 languages. You come to my country, Ethiopia, you have more than 82 languages. I don't know 52 for Uganda, This is, I think for Tanzania, it's over 200. So it's a culturally diverse continent, highly diverse continent. And with each of the cultures, there are seeds, there are food, there are medicinal plants, which are as diverse. So you're snatching away all that diversity. And also the culture around seeds. What is the culture around seeds? When you want seed, either you buy it from a market, simple local market, or you pass by your friend's farm and you see a very good seed and you ask him and you borrow from him, or you give it to your relatives. There is this internal web of exchange. Then you can save your own seed. You can plant whatever seed you want. It's a basic rights of the people. That's being eroded very fast in two ways. One is the merger that you talked about. As one way of big companies coming in and swallowing smaller companies and becoming big. And that's very dangerous to us and to the world. That's one thing. Second is, in 2012, at Camp David, President Obama has initiated something, the G8 alliance, new alliance for food security and nutrition. And 4 countries were included in that. Now the number is 10. It will increase. I think it will explode very, very soon. So through that, one of the commitments that these 10 countries have entered is to open their seed market. And for that, they are forced to change their law, their seed law, so that companies like Monsanto and Cargill and DuPont and Syngenta can come in and flood our markets with seed. And also at the sub-regional, we have regional economical commissions. For example, Ethiopia is part of the common market for East and Southern Africa, COMESA. At the COMESA level, a seed law is being developed. The seed trade law. And also countries under the African regional intellectual property organizations are ascribing to the UPOV 91. Both of these instruments mean that the seeds of the farmers slowly but surely will get away from the hands of the farmers and they will be replaced by companies. To exemplify the danger, a very short example, some 4 years ago we went to one community in Ethiopia. Have asked them the number of the seeds, a particular barley variety that they have. They said they had 19, some 20 years ago, they had 19 varieties of barley. But now they have only 5 of them. What has displaced that? Improved varieties. You see? But and when seed floods into the African farms, I think a lot of diversities would be lost. And that's a loss even for companies. I don't know whether they understand it. Because to produce any kind of hybrid seed, you need a base and you need knowledge. It's not only all the loss of the seeds. The knowledge of the people related to those seeds is also eroded. As she was talking about the banana varieties, if you go to Uganda and people give you these 40 or 50 varieties of banana, you wouldn't know. You need the culture of the people to know. So the moment you lose the seeds, you lose also the culture around that. So that's what we are opposing.
Well, we have just about a minute left. Bridget, let's let you have the last word. Tell people who are listening, if it's not clear already, why they should be concerned about this.
Well, I have, maybe just to summarize it a bit, I think why people should be concerned about this is that in human nature, everyone has things that they value about their lives, about the people they love, about the societies they stay in. And for us, one of those key issues is our culture. And all the issues around our culture, our food, our farming systems, the way we relate with each other. So I feel that everyone should know that everyone should just imagine how they would feel if all these things that they value are being eroded, whereby all these business plans and business projects in the name of, help without consultation. Yeah. So.
All right.
I think people should be worried because we're losing the diversity and the climate is changing. We act as if the climate is changing. It has changed already. It's going to get worse. In this changing climate, we need diversity. African crops are very much important for the whole of humanity. African biodiversity is important. African land is important. So we need to worry about that, and everybody should support organizations like Kaji and AgriWatch. Thank you.
And we need that knowledge too.
Yeah.
It's so critical. All right. Well, with that, we are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you both very much for coming in and spending time with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us. Yeah.